So we're excited to welcome Pam here today to speak to our CAF community, and we look forward to cooking up some delicious food with you, Pam.
Thanks very much for the lovely introduction. I'm thrilled to do this. I'm quite honored that I'm getting invited for Bell Let's Talk because as we know, and I think as we're all experiencing through this whole COVID pandemic, is that our eating habits have changed, our exercise habits, our social habits, and one way that we can look after ourselves and our families is by looking after our mental health. And through this, we want to do it through food, because if your brain is getting the nutrients it needs, it can better cope with the other stresses that life throws around us. So my background is as a dietitian. And I also would like to say hello to fellow Kingstonians, as I was posted in Kingston and left in 2010, so quite some time ago, but it is a city that I really enjoy and love and enjoy going back to visit as well. So with this, I'm going to do a black bean fajita. And so thank you for inviting me into your kitchens as well. We're going to start off, this is a recipe that kind of fires on all cylinders because it's economical, chock full of nutrients to keep your brain nourished, your heart health, your digestive system healthy, and it's also fun to make and should hit everybody's sort of levels in their palates. There's nothing weird and unusual in these foods, and it's something that can be introduced to young and old, and it uses a lot of pantry staples as well as some fresh stuff. So going through a bit of the nutrition and mental health things is that 1 in 5 Canadians will be affected by a mental illness at some point in their lives. And so this is really important because, you know, mental health conditions and can also lead to, you know, we've got a lot of stigma around that, and the more that we talk, like with these Bell Let's Talk kind of discussions, we open up that we all have issues that we can help through community and through exercise, through nutrition, and that depression and anxiety are actually leading causes of disability and can negatively affect your health, your relationships, and your work. So we want to take care of that, because if you don't have your health, you don't have a lot. So nutrition and influences your mental well-being, and you're going to kind of go, how is that? Well, basically, you're feeding your brain. You know, if you don't feed other parts of your body, you don't function and perform well. So studies have shown that a healthy diet can improve your brain health and reduce symptoms of depression. So eating a healthy diet can probably affect your whole mental well-being, as well as in terms of prevention of other diseases. Like, we're even looking at it as being somewhat preventative for Alzheimer's disease. And new studies with Alzheimer's disease is not seeing it as a genetic link as much as a metabolic disease. So meaning that lifestyle really has an important part with this. And so getting that oxygen to your brain is going to keep it nourished through life. So it doesn't, and part of that is by having a healthy heart diet, so that circulatory system is functioning, and you're getting because your circulatory system is what brings the nutrients to various parts of your bodies. So nutrition is important, and we're going to start off with some black beans. So I know in my recipe I said a can of black beans, which is fine. So you can get they're cheap. And that's the point of this. This is not an expensive recipe to do, even in the middle of the winter with expensive peppers, and I'll explain that. It's because you're using beans. If you're using expensive chicken breasts or steak, then the peppers start to seem a little expensive. But beans, a can of beans is like $1. So even cheaper is I soak my beans and cook them off in a pressure cooker. It takes like 5 minutes in a pressure cooker to do. And they're like pennies for this amount. And then you can use them however you want. So a lot of people have Instapots now, and they're a great way to use beans. Like you get a humongous bag of beans for peanuts. So we'll start off, we're gonna do a couple of cloves of garlic, and I think I cleaned up a little bit too much here. And be mindful, you can put up the chat if it starts to get a little too bangy and too noisy, because I'm sorry, I don't have Ina Garten's or Gordon Ramsay's camera crew here to help me out with the details of slick production. So I've got garlic here, and if you take the end of your knife, an easy way to do it is just smack the side of it so it crushes it, and then it's really easy to peel. You can just take a little paring knife. I'm not a big fan of garlic crushers because then you just lose all the garlic juices, and then you got to, it's a lot harder to clean those things. So take a garlic and then just sort of chop it up finely. I like using fresh garlic because, one, it just tastes a lot better than using any dehydrated or whatever. It's also in little bits. We can also look at every little bit counts when we start using fruits and vegetables in our diet as well. So one little clove of garlic isn't much, but when we keep adding and sort of like, it's the sum of the parts that make the difference and not one thing only. So I've added the garlic to the beans. Just, we're gonna do a microwave method, but also those of you who wanna do stovetop can do that too. So just put a little bit of oil in the bottom of a frying pan, and then you can start to saute off your garlic. And this is why, I mean, this is an easy dish to do when you're getting home from work and everybody's hungry. So you can put your garlic in there. I'm gonna put a little bit more in there. And if I'm going too fast, let Krista know in your little chat box to sort of like tell me to slow down or whatever, and she can let me know. So there we go, we got our garlic. And I have, I think, I don't know, mutant jalapenos this winter. And I normally say like a half to a whole jalapeno. I will not use this whole jalapeno, even though my family really likes spicy food. Now, one little way to sort of avoid touching it, and you really want to avoid touching your eyes, is I kind of fillet it. So you kind of cut it down on the side, and then you avoid getting all the seeds all over your cutting board. And the seeds are also where there's a lot of heat. So I'm going to just cut that much off. And then if you know it's really hot, you might not even want to touch it with your fingers. And then we're just going to chop that up finely. Put that in there, and there should be lots. So again, what's a little piece of pepper? Not a lot in your diet. But what you are going to do is you're going to get a little bit of vitamin C, a little bit of vitamin A, and you know, there's all these other nutrients that we're not even completely sure what they do, but they interact together to add more into your overall diet. That's why extracting things just singularly don't really work, and it's sort of like a pharmaceutical thing. So it's everything in your diet that contributes to this. So we're going to talk a bit about how those diet patterns make a difference in keeping and nourishing your brain. So your brain health is also affected your physical health, and your physical health is also going to affect, you know, the choices you make. So everything is in a circle, and it goes back as well, and it's sort of like a domino effect in things. So the brain needs a lot of energy and nutrients from food to for its structure and for its function. So, and the healthy foods and regular exercise can also help reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety. So then you're going to, and you know, if you're feeling better, you're going to make better health choices. So healthy food choices can also decrease the symptoms of depression and the risk of developing heart disease and high blood pressure, stroke, and diabetes. And also, if you're suffering from whether it's mental illness or just feeling the blues, or if you might have people who perhaps misuse alcohol or other drugs, aren't going to have the appetite or the energy to want to choose as well. So when you choose better, you then make consequential better choices as well. So we've got the jalapeno, the garlic in there. Now I'm also going to add in a tomato. So tomatoes. I didn't really have a great tomato today. Like if you look at these, it's a Roma tomato, not exactly the ripest, but if you don't have, this is why this recipe is great, is because you can just sort of make stuff up as you go along. So it's okay, but you know what? If I don't find it looks juicy enough in there, I'm going to just add, you can add canned tomatoes, or since I've already got salsa on the go, I can just give it a couple of spoonfuls or wax with of salsa to sort of loosen it up. So I'm looking at this going, yeah, it might look okay. So I might want to add that, give it a little stir. Lose half the beans on the countertop. And I'm looking at, it's probably going to need a little bit more. So in there, I'm going to add, I've got some cumin, ground cumin. And again, I've suggested, a half to a teaspoon of this. I really like cumin. It's really aromatic. It's not hot spicy, but it's really aromatic, and it kind of gives you that nice impression that, you're eating Mexican kind of food. With this, I've also said a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of chili powder, and all that will depend on how fresh, how hot, and how much you like stuff. Now, I kind of do my own chili powder just because I've used some chipotle pepper that you can get at Bulk Barn, you can get at various spice stores or whatever, some oregano and more cumin and a little bit of paprika. So I like to use that a little bit, and you can sort of do it as you wish with that. Give it another little stir, and you might want to add a little pinch of salt. Since my beans are made in a pressure cooker, there's no salt added at all. So a little bit of salt will bring out some of the taste. And if you're using regular black beans, what you might want to do as well is give them a little rinse to get some of the salt out. You can get a lot of the salt out of the from giving them a little rinse, not just draining them. Or you can buy the no added sodium ones. So now we've got our beans done here. I think it needs a wee bit of more moisture. So I'm going to use a little bit of salsa in there. Again, this is sort of like one of those wing it kind of things. Now, some of you might have gardens and make your own homemade salsa. I have a couple of precious jars of salsa that a friend has made for me. And that's something you can make up on your own. The salsa, so this is something that you can check out. And I mean, this is like a Costco size. Again, if you make your own homemade stuff with fresh stuff when it's available, is good. Now, when we're looking at the sodium here, it is pretty high. It's got 250 milligrams of sodium for 2 tablespoons. So if you're using a lot of it, again, if you're countering that by not using prepackaged, taco mixes that are mostly salt, and we're making everything else homemade, you can add, this is where that give and take of something is there. So now our beans are made up, and I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to throw them in the microwave so that they heat up. So depending on how powerful your microwave is, 3-4 minutes, and away you go. So my microwave is going to make an awful lot of noise in here. So I will just magically put them away. So some of the things that when we look at, and I'll let you guys chop that up, get going on that part. And then in the end, we can add a little bit of cilantro or parsley to that when it all comes out. Cilantro doesn't maintain heat, or doesn't do well with heat. So you can just add that in the end too. Or you can even add a little bit of green onions and stuff like that as well. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on our guacamole and then our vegetables. But what we're going to talk about is some of the key nutrients that we're going to be working with. The key nutrients for brain health that they're looking at some specific nutrients, but the basic thing, the bottom line up front that I want you guys to remember about is it's about the whole diet and not about one particular nutrient, that you have to get this from food. So eating a bunch of, there are instances where supplements are very necessary, very required and encouraged. But with eating healthy, it's about the whole diet. It's not about what you eat on one day, but it's what you eat over the course of a week or weeks or months or your lifetime. So all these little things and every little bit counts. Some key nutrients we're going to talk about are omega-3 fatty acids. We're going to talk about some antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals, and basically how they work. And the gut microbiome, which is getting a lot of press right now, and you've probably read lots in the popular press about that, and the interplay of the various diet patterns, the pro-inflammatory and the anti-inflammatory. So when we're looking at various nutrients, the antioxidants, so those are the ones that are going to help remove what they call free radicals in your body, so the oxidative stress. And this is where, the various nutrients, eating a diet that doesn't have a lot of vegetables and fruits with the antioxidants in them can lead to a low-grade inflammation, which can then lead to more oxidative stress, which can lead to DNA damage. There's links to cancer, diabetes, heart disease, whenever you have this low-grade inflammation. So this inflammation is the body's way of responding to stressful stimuli. And even stress, and so mental stress, can also cause some of this. So somehow the body's got to get rid of this. And one way to help or reduce oxidative stress is by eating vegetables and fruits that have a lot of antioxidants in them. So that you get from things like peppers, which have a lot of vitamin C, and vitamin C is a great antioxidant. And we will work on cutting up a couple of these right now. So vitamins C, D, and the B vitamins, B6, 12, and folate are the ones that have a lot of influence in our brain health, as well as the minerals zinc and iron also play into our diet. So again, I kind of fillet my peppers. So give your pepper a little fillet, and it also makes it easier for when you put it in doesn't make a big mess of your cutting board. And voila, into the compost. So we can just slice up your peppers, and then we'll cry when we start cutting our onions. And we can talk about how, these happen to be quite expensive at this time of the year. But as I was explaining before, if you're putting in, like, I think my green peppers were a reasonable price, but these are like $5.99 a pound. Well, that's kind of expensive. But when you consider that, this is costing you a little over $1 for one of these peppers, you might look at it. But your beans cost you $1. If you're using chicken or you're using beef, you might already be up to $10 for whatever amount that you're using. So, and I also put in the option of carrots or cabbage. I mean, it doesn't have to be peppers that you use in there. So remember that these also have lots of nutrients in them as well. If you're carrots and cabbage, the cabbage is a great underutilized or disrespected vegetable that's got lots of these what we call organosulfur compounds, and they've been linked to a lot of healthy colon health. And again, they are another way to get lots of fiber, and we will talk about some of the fiber and the effects on your gut microbiome and how that is how different foods can play a part in this. So now I've got my pepper all cut up, and I forgot to get a plate to put this on, so excuse me a moment. So I've got our peppers. Same goes for those organosulfur compounds are also what's in garlic and what we're going to get in our onions. So all of these little things, like, you go, oh, it's only flavoring, but you keep adding a little bit, and we're going to get this in there. So I've talked a bit about the gut microbiome, and the gut microbiome is basically, as it says, in your gut, and the microbiome are all the bacteria in your whole system that interact. And so we want to have these healthy symbiotic bacteria that help create a favorable place for all kinds of nutrient absorption and nutrient manufacture, as well as the neurotransmitters. And the neurotransmitters are chemicals in our brain that make us feel good, feel bad. So the gut-brain connection acts as a two-way physical and chemical connection and communication between your gut and your brain. And this is done mostly through the vagus nerve, which runs from your brain down to your gut. So when you say you get a gut feeling, well, it's also your brain working too. And so this is where a lot of the nutrient absorption, production, and sort of the metabolism of vitamins happen as well. So diets that are high in fiber and which tend to come from whole grains, legumes, which we're getting out of our beans, because our beans are full of protein, not just our protein source, but they're full of fiber and folate, B6, phosphorus, calcium, and that insoluble fiber. So there's two types of fiber, soluble and insoluble. One helps absorb water, and the other one isn't digested and helps move your bowels. So all of this stuff is good for overall health, for heart health, bone health, and obviously brain health. So with these, like any of these fruits and vegetables are going to contribute to making your gut happier in terms of they help supply these healthy bacteria. And what we found is that when a diet doesn't have enough of these, there's not enough nutrients to feed your brain. So you end up basically with being overfed and undernourished. So we want to make sure that those bacteria stay happy and that there's a great diversity of them in there. So fruits and vegetables, whole grains, legumes are the easiest way to do it and provide for a happy environment.
Can we ask a quick question, Pam?
Sure.
Talking about happy and like some of those benefits for those foods. Are there any foods specifically that we could eat that would help boost our mood? Other than the fact that our physical health is feeling good, but like, is there anything specifically linked to that?
As one particular one, I guess this is where, in some ways you think, oh, well, a bowl of ice cream is going to make me really happy, or eating that chocolate bar. And I'm going to get to that dark chocolate bit. But yes and no. And again, it's all in moderation. And that's sort of my mantra is everything in moderation, and you might even say including moderation. But a bowl of ice cream, if you're doing it all the time, isn't really going to make you feel great because you're just getting all that fat and sugar coming in. But if you're having it as a celebratory type of thing and you're having a good time, but eating things like having a bowl of, say, oatmeal with berries is going to make you feel better. Actually, we've also shown that a little bit of caffeine can help improve your mood. But there's a word of caution with that. Again, it's moderation. So what we found is like more than 400 milligrams of caffeine in a day can affect, if you're pregnant, can affect the fetus, as well as can make you edgy, nervous, anxious, and disrupt your sleep patterns. So a little bit of coffee or a little bit of tea or something like that is actually a little bit mood elevating, but a lot of that, it's counterproductive.
All right, so great, thank you. So we'll let you carry on.
So I've got my vegetables done up there, and where was I? I guess I get a little obsessed about this gut microbiome, and whenever I talk about making your gut happy and stuff like that, my daughter goes, "Yes, it's about your gut microbiome." And whether we're talking, and I'm sure people have also heard about prebiotics, probiotics, and basically what the difference between them is the fiber. There's some that are what we call resistant starches that don't get digested. And so those are the ones that are going to feed the bacteria, which are the probiotics. The prebiotics, consider them sort of like the food for your bacteria. So those are going to be all the, the fibrous foods. And don't get hung up on what exactly they are or whatever. If you're going to eat, increasing your consumption of vegetables and fruit overall is just going to help get those resistant starches and those prebiotics in your system so that your bacteria can help. So somebody who might have been on antibiotic treatment or whatever, a lot of those bacteria can get wiped out. And so eating, again, going back to eating more of those vegetables and fruit can help build it back up. Also, eating things that are fermented. So many cultures, especially, you know, we don't tend to do it so much in our modern Western culture, but many cultures would ferment foods, and those have been shown to have, you know, beneficial effects on your gut. And the result is that it makes it for a healthier immune system as well, because things like vitamin D are metabolized in your gut and related to your immune function, as well as zinc. Zinc is related to your immune functions, and it forms a lot of the brain circuitry, and just about everything in your brain has a zinc molecule attached to it as well. So everything has, it's like a 3D puzzle that just keeps moving, and everything fits in. So these neurotransmitters in your brain are produced, so serotonin, the feel-good neurotransmitter, is mostly produced in your gut. So keeping your gut happy is going to keep your brain happy. So where are we now? Oh, we're doing guacamole. So what I can do is, before I start frying these, I'm going to make up the guacamole, because that's going to make a fair bit of noise. And of course, the guacamole, when you really want, your avocados aren't quite as ripe as you'd like. And I need another dish. And my potato masher. Gordon Ramsay would have some crew helping him with this. So take your well-washed avocados. And avocados are a great fruit that we tend to use more as a vegetable. And everybody's got a big, I mean, they've been really popular and they've gone way up in price. So when you cut it open, and this one looks like it's nice and ripe, make sure when you're taking the pit out, give it a really firm clap like that, and it'll fall out all on its own. But be very decisive about it when it comes out. Otherwise, you'll end up cutting your hand. So an easy way to get this out for guacamole is to score it in little, you know, the less ripe it is, the smaller the scores. And then you cut it in little, and I'm sure most of you have done this. Now, the fact that I didn't have ripe avocados, which I was counting on, you can use frozen avocados as well, and they work quite well. So I'm going to scoop them out, and on a larger one, I might cut it out, or if it's less ripe, I might also sort of slice it down the side and scoop it out this way. But this one's ripe. I'm not so sure about the next one. Now, avocados, we know, are full of vitamin E and monounsaturated fats, so healthy fats for us. And there's been a recent study coming out about the fiber and carbohydrate in avocados that, guess what? They're healthy for our microbiome. So this one here, not so bad. Well, sometimes when the pit doesn't want to move, there it is. Sometimes shows that, no, it's not quite as ripe. So that doesn't really matter, because it just, you know, it's still ripe enough that it'll taste good. It just might not mash up as smooth. Now, if you're not really keen on making your own guacamole, or you don't have time because, you know, getting home from work, I don't know how many folks are still going into work, or you're just tired of this breakfast, lunch, supper thing all the time, is you just use avocado slices. You don't need to have guacamole with this. This is just sort of souped up a little bit. And so I'm scooping the avocado into here. And you can leave it like this, or I'm going to take a potato masher. And if you had really ripe ones, you could take a fork. Now, the reason why we're doing, I would suggest doing homemade guacamole, or or avocado slices is that the commercial guacamoles, I'm not really even sure how much avocado is really in it. There are a lot of fillers and starches to sort of bind it, to keep it from going bad, and just necessary, you know. And once you start eating fresh avocados, if anybody's using them for their smoothies or avocado toast and stuff like that, you just don't really want to go back to commercial avocado. So you can start giving them a little bit of a little mash. Oh, these are coming up quite nicely with the potato masher or fork. And then give them a little sprinkling of salt. Not too much, again. Now, again, this is something that you can just make up as you like. With a, you know, if you want a little bit of garlic in it, you can add some garlic. What I like in it is I like to use lime juice. And if you don't have limes, because limes are also starting to get really expensive in the middle of the winter, a little bit of regular old vinegar will work, white vinegar. So the magic ingredient, though, that I do find that sort of makes it taste really like sunshine, and you think we can all imagine that we're in Mexico right now, is using the zest. And the zest will give it that extra zip, or, you know, that sunshine flavor. Not only that, it smells really great. So use a zester. If you don't have a zester, you can just take a peeler and try to get it so you don't get the white pith on there, so it isn't bitter, and then you can slice it up, or you can grate it on a like a cheese grater on one of the sides, and you can get or use one of those microplanes. I find sometimes a microplane is a little too fine for my liking. So now we've got that, and I can smell it already. And some people will add some hot pepper or Tabasco sauce to this. I figure my beans are going to be hot enough. I'll leave my guacamole to be my cooling agent. So I find one of these reamers, one of the easiest ways to get, especially since limes don't tend to have a lot of seeds like lemons, you get the most juice out of a lime using one of these. And if you don't have anything to squeeze, just use a fork. And the fork will mash up all the cell walls of your lime, and you'll get all the juice out of it. So there we go. And give that a mash. I think half a lime looks like it's going to work just fine. And I like to put a little bit of green onion in there. So I'm going to just put this, cut up a little bit of green onion. This is where they used to also have commercial breaks. So when you forgot one piece of your equipment or whatever, they go, and we'll be right back after this commercial. You can sneak in and get like whatever was in the oven. So you can use a little green onion and mash it up. If you don't like green onion, don't put it in. Sometimes I like to add a few little cherry tomatoes. They're sweet and they look nice. Makes it look like Christmas with the green and red. But you can add in as many as you want, or not add them in at all. Or you can use a regular tomato, but as much as you want. And again, this is one of these recipes that's not a recipe, and that's what I think I want to emphasize is most. Is like you make this up as you go along. So once you've done it once, you can just sort of adjust for whoever's eating it, whoever likes it. If people like things spicy or not as spicy, you like more beans, less beans, more vegetables, and then give that a stir. And we've got this great looking homemade guacamole. And if you're going to make it ahead of time, just so it doesn't brown, you can put a little more squirt of a lime on it. And then when you put it in the fridge or whatever, make sure that the wrap that you're going to use, or if it's a container, almost touches the avocado, and then that way it won't brown. So avocados, great for kind of one of the popular foods that has so much going for it. So we've talked about a number of the fruits and vegetables and stuff like that, but we talked a bit about vitamin C, how it's an antioxidant benefits, and how those are found, in citrus fruits, almost any kind of, fruits and peppers. Berries are very high in vitamin C, kiwi, broccoli, tomatoes, potatoes, and any kind of green vegetable. Vitamin E that we talked about a bit in the avocado is a little bit harder for us to get enough of in our diets if we're not eating a lot of healthy fats. But that can be found in nuts, especially walnuts, in olive oil, canola oil, and wheat germ, and stuff. So what we're going to use a little bit of canola oil when we fry up the vegetables, and then we'll go. So I'm not sure I talked enough about vitamin B, because we didn't really have a whole lot of things that we were talking about, the whole grains. And we'll get to the whole grains when we talk about the tortillas. So I'm using whole grain tortillas. And if we look at you're going to get more of the vitamins in there. And that is also where B vitamins are used for basically all your metabolism, carbohydrate, fat, and protein metabolism. So let's fry up some of these. I'll just turn that on and heat it up a little bit. And I hope that isn't too loud. I won't put on the fan. So we're going to get iron also in those beans that we're using. So because we don't have it's not a meat-based dish, there's some iron in there, which iron is used in every it's used to make hemoglobin and to carry oxygen to your body. So red meats, poultry, oysters, legumes are some of the best sources to get it. Quinoa, pumpkin seeds, fortified cereal, and we got to the dark chocolate. And that's one of the happy foods, because chocolate just always makes me happy. Dark chocolate, though, when you go for that, it's not like an O. Henry is not a chocolate bar. So when you're looking at the dark chocolate being high in iron and zinc, so there's, you need to really look for the really dark chocolate, like, the Lindt 80% and stuff like that. So look on the back of the label and see just how much iron is in there. You'd be surprised if you're going with a very high cocoa content, low sugar chocolate. And a little bit of that is good for the morale too. So get my pan hot enough, I think. So I'm going to use, I hope this doesn't get too loud. I'm going to use just a little bit of oil. Little squirt. And now we're going to throw in all the, now you can add more garlic in with this. I'm going to put my onions in first, because I like them done a little bit more than I like the peppers. I'll let that sort of, and I use a big wok. Part of the reason why I use a big wok is it's got high size on it, so it prevents a little bit of splatter, but I can get a lot of food into it. And I just find it's nice when you're doing any kind of vegetables and stuff. And I've had that one for a million years. It was a gift from a friend, and it's incredibly useful whenever you need a large volume pot to do any kind of sauteing. Now, you're probably asking, why am I using canola oil rather than olive oil, which is also a healthy fat and high in vitamin E? Is that canola oil has a higher smoking point than using something like olive oil. Olive oil will start to break down at higher temperatures. And why use a more expensive oil when you're not looking for the flavor of the olive oil, and the benefits are just as good with it. So it's going to be a little hard to sort of see, but you can sort of see how the onions are starting to get a little blackened. I like them like that. Too black isn't good for, like, barbecue black is not good for our health, but a little bit is good. I'm going to put in my peppers.
One of the participants, green tea, Pam, says that it looks incredibly delicious and healthy.
Great, great. So you can leave that to the doneness that you like your peppers. I'm going to leave them in a little bit longer, and as that cooks, I'm going to chop up my cilantro. Now, again, this is a personal preference. There are people in my family who aren't crazy over cilantro because they think it tastes like soap, and I love cilantro, and they think it's because it tastes like soap, and I happen to be a bit of a germaphobe. So that aside, and I'm going to get out my. Where did I put my cheese? So we're almost done here.
We haven't seen cheese yet, Pam, so I'm not sure where it is.
Cheese. So I got some, yeah. So like it's remembering where I, like I could walk down the basement to the pantry and go get my cheese, but here it is. I'm using Monterey Jack, jalapeno, cheddar, mozzarella, and as you'll notice, I'm not using a huge amount of cheese for this because cheese, as well as it's good, is not one of those things that you need to eat a pound of cheese when we have cheese, because it's high in saturated fat. So let's balance out with some goodness of cheese and with the flavor, and we get the, again, I like spicy, so I got the one with a little bit of jalapeno peppers in it, and I'm going to show you these now. So they're ready for eating now. So I'll put them in there. And so where did they go? So we did talk as this sizzles on a bit about pro and anti-inflammatory diet patterns. And part of this is that when we look at the pro-inflammatory diet patterns, the ones that are going to sort of like not nourish our bodies as well tend to be sort of that junk food, Western food kind of thing. So if you're not eating a lot of vegetables and fruits and legumes and whole grains to nourish your body, you're not going to have all the nutrients to nourish your brain. And so then it ends up being, everything is a cyclical kind of thing. So when we're looking at the pro-inflammatory, it can lead to that low-grade inflammation in your body. And it's also been linked with irritable bowel syndrome. So again, if anybody has been diagnosed with irritable bowel, again, it's something to look at. What foods can you eat that are more anti-inflammatory? And the anti-inflammatory ones tend to be the ones that what we call, we refer to it as a Mediterranean style. And as much as we say Mediterranean, it doesn't mean that you have to eat Mediterranean foods as if you lived in the south of France or north of Morocco, but by the patterns, the patterns of eating food that's homemade, food that is not highly processed. The highly processed food strips the nutrients from it, and you're not really left with a whole lot. So again, if you can make stuff from scratch, if you're not going to make the whole guacamole by scratch, well, have some fresh avocado slices with it, or throw in, the shredded cabbage or whatever vegetables you have, because basically you can put anything into a tortilla shell. And if you don't have tortillas, you can still eat this stuff without, you can eat it on rice or something. So you don't have to have it. And this is where, you just play with what you've got. So the Mediterranean style stuff has, again, a lot, smaller portions of meat. It doesn't mean eliminating it. Fish for the omega-3 fatty acids, for the brain health, which you can get from oily fish, chia seeds, canola oil, walnuts, and stuff if for people who are vegan. we're also going to get, all that, the vitamin C's from all the fruits and vegetables that you're going to have, vitamin E from eating, healthy fats and nuts and seeds, the B vitamins. Something I didn't touch on was folate. Folate is the vitamin that we get when we eat a lot of leafy greens. Folic acid is the supplement that we take. And that's women of childbearing age or women who might become pregnant should consider taking folic acid to avoid neural tube defects. Iron is needed for energy because it's what helps our hemoglobin production so that we can transport iron throughout our oxygen throughout our body. Zinc is going to help our immune and our nerve function because it's part of our brain circuitry. And something that we didn't really talk about, because there's not really any dairy in this one, is vitamin D, the sunshine vitamin. And we can't really rely on the sunshine to provide all of it. So we need to eat foods, especially in Canada, that are higher in vitamin D. They're fortified in vitamin D. And all our fluid milk in Canada is fortified with vitamin D. It isn't in all other countries, and not necessarily are our other dairy products fortified. So you need to check and see if that yogurt is fortified with vitamin D or not, but otherwise it's fluid milk that is. And so now it looks like we're ready for assembly and questions. Oh, and I gotta go get my beans, not just my
So Pam, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but we did have a question about anti-inflammatory diets. So would you say they're helpful or harmful?
Anti-inflammatory diets are very helpful. And when we look at it, this is all part of the emerging, what we're calling nutritional psychiatry, is that we're realizing that anti-inflammatory isn't just about heart health or it affects everything. And so the foods that tend to be promoted as anti-inflammatory, again, are the ones that I talked about. And there's actually what they call it's a dietary index of inflammation, or I can't remember quite the acronym, but they've actually rated foods and their inflammatory index on them. So a little like the glycemic index. And so some foods, again, the highly processed foods are going to promote more inflammation in your body. And foods like where they've done a lot of studies on are really the omega-3 fatty acids that are found in fish. So fatty fish, mostly salmon, sardines, mackerel, sardines in a can, super cheap, vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids. Nobody's going to want to sit next to you when you eat them, but they are like a little nutrition powerhouse. So anti-inflammatory diets, very helpful. People with, various autoimmune diseases, arthritis, it can be very helpful for them as well. Did I answer that?
There's a follow-up question to that. So does our mental state influence our digestion or how well anti-inflammatory foods work in our body?
That one I think might be getting a little bit out of my scope in terms of that might require more of how does our mental state affect digestion? It will, because if we're nervous and things are upset, is that we might have to be having more or less gastric acid production. So if we have somebody who might be very anxious or having a lot of stress, might have too much acid production in their stomach where they're getting acid reflux. Therefore, they're going to go on perhaps some, depending on what their primary care provider suggests, they may go on anti-reflux medication or proton pump inhibitors. So then they're not going to have as much gastric acid to then digest the food. And then you're not going to get the ideal of nutrient absorption. So again, one thing plays on another, as well as if you're totally stressed out, your stomach can be in knots. So think about when you're relaxed, and goodness knows it's been a long time since we've sat down at a dinner party with friends or had people around our table in our homes where we can really relax and enjoy food. And think about how well you digest food when you're relaxed amongst people, and when you're stressed out eating at your desk for the next deadline, how well things don't sit.
Great. Thanks. There's another. Yep, that's perfect. No other questions for follow up on that. Thank you. So we'll let you cook now.
Oh well, I'm at the making part. So I guess we just open up the floor for more questions and stuff. It's we talked about that, and basically if people want to take one, just even one thing is going to improve, and it's the steps. It's the little steps that you can take to improve your diet. So if you take one by, starting with an anti-inflammatory, well, maybe it means that, you start reducing the amount of some of the processed food that you buy. Shop the perimeter of the grocery stores and stay away from that freezer section unless you're buying frozen vegetables. And which, by the way, as fruits and vegetable prices are going up, frozen vegetables are an excellent source of nutrients because they're picked and packed at peak. And they've come a long way since we were kids and ate soggy Brussels sprouts, frozen Brussels sprouts. You can get great stir fry vegetables and broccoli. You go to some of the smaller markets and you can get fruits and vegetables that we don't normally see in our big superstores. So there we go. I get on tangents.
No, perfect. So maybe then, Pam, like you were saying, we could, as you're putting the meal together, I invite everybody to, if you have a question, to maybe unmute yourself and ask it instead of me always talking. So I invite you to do that. And I saw Sharon just put one right in the chat, so I'll invite her to say it out loud.
Yeah, maybe we can even get video up now that we're at the end, and then I can see people.
All right. This is awesome, Pam. Thank you so much. I'm so thankful that you did a vegan option as well. So that's great because it allows people to add the meat or the cheese or whatever they want. So I love having that base. My question is, should all of our fruits and vegetables we eat be organic, or are there certain fruits or vegetables that it's more important to choose organic, or is that nothing to be concerned about?
Well, that is not a black and white answer. And if anybody wants, the most important thing is to consume vegetables and fruit, whichever way you can. Organic is expensive, and it's not necessarily, from an environmental impact, it sounds like it could be, a very worthwhile type of thing. But if your organic produce had to come from Peru and you got an inorganic, of course, everything's organic because it's carbon-based, but you bought a local cabbage that was done in sort of traditional farming, which one has the bigger environmental impact? What is more important, the herbicides and pesticides that are used in Canada, we don't have, the residues aren't there, and it's more the herbicides really are not, we wash those off. So it's not a question of, is it better? It's really a choice. And again, almost every fruit or vegetable that you choose may have an impact on the sustainability of that product. If you're getting organic strawberries from, South America in the winter, well, maybe buying local in June is a better choice. So, it comes down to what do you want to do in terms of your choices, whether it's kind of a value system more than a nutrition question. So nutritiously, eat vegetables and fruit. If you're concerned about getting peak nutrients in the winter, buy frozen. You're actually probably going to get better food value out of the frozen broccoli than the fresh stuff that's traveled from California for a week in a truck.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Hi, Pam.
Hi.
Jeremy here from Health Promotion in Kingston. You talked a bit about cheese earlier and how it's high in saturated fat, so just enjoy in moderation. Would you have any recommendation in buying low-fat cheese, or do you just believe in getting a good quality cheese and just eating it in moderation?
Again, that is a personal preference, and based on how much cheese are you going to eat. Sometimes I'll choose, depending on what it is. If I'm going to do something like a pizza, I will try to get a lighter mozzarella, because I really don't need. There's a fair bit more cheese on that. So I'm still going to get all that taste and flavor out of a lower fat mozzarella than I am from the higher fat. And it's, again, for people who want to know how to look for fat content on a cheese, is look at the BF or MF, butter fat or milk fat percentage on that. And then just sort of move the decimal. And that kind of tells you what it's been made with. So if you see cheese that's 23% butter fat or milk fat, move that decimal to 2.3. And that shows you that it's been made with something with a lower fat milk. If something is a 35% butter fat, move that decimal and you see it's 3.5. So made with whole milk. So you can kind of get that. Now, when you get to something like fine cheeses, I haven't tasted a good low-fat brie that actually has a lot of flavor in it. Yeah. So if you're gonna, a cooking cheese and an eating cheese is a little bit different. If you have a lovely cheese board with, some grapes and some nice bread, well, again, maybe you don't eat, that's when you're not going to eat the entire wheel of brie, but you're going to have a nice piece and really enjoy it and savor it.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, so one of the things my family always makes fun of me is I always try to get too much into my tortilla, and then I can't eat it with my hands, and I have to use so these are just, whole grain tortillas. And this is where we all differ on how we like to assemble it. So I'm going to get another spoon. So some people, my daughter will spread her, so I've used some sour cream here. You can use yogurt, lower fat sour cream. Here's a case where, depends on how much sour cream you're going to eat and how much you want. So I don't eat a whole lot of it. So sometimes I will use regular fat. If I'm going to be using a lot of it in a recipe, I'll choose lower fat. So we can put the beans. Now, this is part of the, you guys can make fun of me too, because I will put too many on here. And so I've got the beans, and my little tongs disappeared for my vegetables. And assemble the vegetables. Oh yeah, I forgot to put the other thing is I always forget to do sort of like the last garnishing touch. And so I put some cilantro in there. I'm going to put a little on here. And we'll take some guacamole. And salsa. And I forgot I always like a little bit of Tabasco or something on there. I also, this summer, we grew these ghost peppers, which are like insanely hot that we couldn't eat. And so I found a recipe to make this ghost pepper hot pepper sauce, which is insanely hot, but it's really good with this. So the sour cream doesn't
have a fan of ghost peppers in the audience. Not me, but Kelly loves them too.
Oh my goodness, they're like blow your head off hot. Anyway, I found this great recipe, and I mean, it's this. Here's my ghost pepper. I mean, you need this stuff. You need like a half a teaspoon for a whole recipe of this. And it smells incredible.
Good luck wrapping up that tortilla, Pam.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's why. And then a little sprinkle of cheese. And this is where, how everybody eats on camera. I'm not sure I can do that.
It's deconstructed. Like if working,
I think I might need to get that.
Oh my gosh, my mouth is watering.
Yeah, and as true to form, I made it. Oh, look at that. Look at
Oh, that looks amazing.
that. There we go. So, and you can, and you don't even need to make it with black beans. You can make it with kidney beans, or if somebody doesn't like those, chickpeas. Now you've got all the, and most people should have you can make it up as you go along and a few things. And I guess that's just it, is find something in your fridge to throw it all together and away you go.
Would you include rice in there? Like, would you suggest to people?
Yeah, I have done it that way too. So often, like if you're kind of doing like a baked, so I've done it where I've kind of assembled some of this stuff without like sort of the fixings with more rice, and then you sort of wrap it up and then almost like an enchilada kind of thing, and then put it in a pan and maybe put a little bit of salsa on or something to keep it a little bit moister, and a little bit of cheese on the top, and put it in the oven. And I've done it with, you might need to mix a little bit more moisture in with it that way, like a little bit more tomato, and then up your spices.
So it's inspiring to make delicious, healthy meals in a kitchen like that, for sure. But
I love my
simple
kitchen.
ingredients, cost effective, and I think you really did a great job of explaining like how we can eat better for our minds too, and not just for our body.
PSP Kingston, the health and wellness provider for the military community.